thinking and speaking about that in a moment. But I want to try to get participation early, and I'm going to do like I do sometimes. I'm going to let a question or a comment be asked by the class to start with. If you have a question or a comment, and if you do, we'll start with that, and we'll go from there. And if not, why then we'll proceed into some notes I have here. But I'd rather get your insight, your input to begin with. So I'm going to pause and give an occasion here for a question or a comment to be asked. And we'll discuss it as much as we can. And as long as it's interesting, like the dog chewing the bone, we'll chew it as long as there's something in it to chew. And when there's no longer anything in it, we'll quit chewing it. But we'll give you that opportunity to ask a question if you.
Margarita has one.
All right. Well, Margarita, when she's ready, she can ask a question, make a comment, and we'll go from there.
Brother Marlow?
Yes.
I have read about Jerusalem, which is above is free, which is the mother of us all. But I had never really paid attention to what it meant. And I am not so sure that I have it clear.
Good. That was a good follow-up to yesterday and the comment we made. And let's just look into that subject. And the base scripture I used yesterday, of course, was, which is not related directly, but then I brought it into that relationship, showing there were two creations. And since there's two creations or two births, there's mothers. Eve was the natural woman, the natural lineage of Adam's race, which I am a part of by my birth, and you are. We all came from the mother of all living. That's the natural person. But I used John 3 and the encounter of Christ with Nicodemus, showing that Christ made it a definite point of intrusion of his knowledge with Nicodemus, a man of knowledge, that Nicodemus needed to be born again. Well, he reacted as I would. If someone told me that 20 centuries ago and I didn't understand their comment, I would say, how can this be? How can a man be born again? Can he enter the mother's womb the second time? This is the conversation in John 3 that takes place between Jesus and John. That is Jesus and Nicodemus. And then Jesus shows, he said, I've told you earthly things, and you can't understand it. If I tell you heavenly things, how can you understand that? That which is born of the flesh is of the flesh, and that which is born of the Spirit is of the Spirit. So he directly shows that there is a birth of the Spirit, and that brings forth children. And the parent, by the scriptures, would be Christ, the Father. Christ is referred to not often as the Father in the scriptures, but he is referred to periodically. And one of those places is 1 John, not the Gospel of John, but 1 John, the 2nd chapter and the 1st verse. My little children, these things I write unto you. And he's referring to the church now as little children, since we are born of the Spirit. These things I write unto you, that you sin not. But if any of you do sin, if any man sin, transgress, we have an advocate. Now that word advocate is a legal word. It goes back into the Greek with legal terms. Barrister, we get our word lawyer, the English word, barrister, the old English word. From that, advocate, we still use it, advocate, one who advocates or pleads your cause. We have an advocate with the Father, and he refers to Christ as a Father, Jesus Christ the righteous. Now we've established that there's a birth. We've established that there is a heavenly Father of a spiritual birth. So if there's a father, there's a birth, there are children, then there is a mother. Now Eve would not qualify to be my mother spiritually. She is in the lineage of my mother in the flesh, but not spiritually. So Paul brings this up again and uses the term mother in Galatians, as we referred to it yesterday, Galatians 4. And in this reference, he's really dealing, I always like to get the context of any chapter that I'm in. In the 4th chapter of Galatians, the churches of Galatia were Gentile churches. They were not Jewish churches. And they were dealing with circumcision and uncircumcision because the Gentiles did not circumcise a male child on the 8th day as a matter of their religion. The Hebrews did. So here he's dealing with them serving the law, and he's trying to show them that they're not to be in bondage to observe circumcision as a commandment of God under the covenant of Christ. It's optional, it's a work of the flesh that fathers, medical sources do for the purpose of the child's well-being, but it's not connected with their faith as it was in Israel, that every male child must be circumcised. Paul is showing that we have a freedom, not only from that part, but from all of the law. There were 613 commandments in the law. 10 commandments Moses gave them from Sinai. They added 603. Thou shalt not and thou shalt. That was the addition of the priesthood of Israel. God gave 10. But they took it far beyond that, and by the time that the prophet Malachi closes out the 39 books of the Old Testament, they have 613 laws that they're trying to observe. They're trying to keep, because they kept adding law upon law, modifying laws, adding another law. And it became ritualism. And Paul is trying to show them that you can't, this is not your mother now. This is not what you are looking at as your spiritual mother any longer, you Galatians. He said, because, and he starts in the 21st verse, tell me, chapter 4, Galatians, tell me, you that desire to be under the law, do you not hear the law? Okay, if you want to be under the law, then hear the law. For it is written, verse 22, that Abraham, and Abraham of course was the patriarchal father of all of Israel. Father Abraham, they referred to him as Father Abraham. The one had 2 sons. The one by a bondmaid, you can read the account in Genesis, 16th chapter of Genesis. The one by a concubine or a bondmaid, which they were allowed to have in that day. The other by a free woman, or the one that was his wife. But he who was of the bondwoman, which was Ishmael, and her name was Hagar, the bondwoman was born after the flesh. But he of the free woman was by promise, because Sarah, the mother of Isaac, was barren and could not have children and did not bear children until